This is perhaps the biggest project you have done, at 11 unique figures.
True, but they're all built off of a similar frame, so I don't know if it really counts.
So how do you want to proceed?
First, I'll have you give the story behind the project before I talk about the models.
Very well. The idea of a generation-free Bionicle theme first came to be after the release of the 90 Years of Play set in 2022, which featured a collection of mini-builds based on famous LEGO sets, which included Tahu. The next year, they put out a gift with purchase set of Tahu, this time a more proper recreation, which also included Takua. Given that LEGO has not had dedicated ball and socket builds since 2018, and that their newer superhero construction figures are system-based, the idea of a system-based Bionicle G3 was born. We now move to early 2023, when Bricklink began their first Bricklink Designer program, which is sort of like LEGO Ideas, but works a little differently. One of the submissions was from Sokoda, and they had made their own original ball and socket figures, Astarr and Soluu. Not only that, but Astarr had a functioning gearbox. This piqued our interest and led to the formulation of Project Zalax, which was going to be system-built figures based on the racers from the LEGO Racers Zalax line from 2001. However, some difficulties arose and the idea was quickly archived, until October 2024 when it would be reignited, this time as a fully fledged Bionicle G3 concept.
But this was not going to be as simple as building the Toa Mata as a set of MOCs. I had some tight requirements for the project. First, all 6 Toa Mata had to be buildable in real life with currently produced pieces and structurally sound, as if commissioned by LEGO themselves. But they also had to have a functioning gearbox, as well as full articulation. And as if I needed to add more stipulations, they had to have proper color coordination, unlike the trend that came with Hero Factory from the character and creature building system. And finally, and actually due to necessity, the masks must be removable.
It is to be noted that the gearbox torso, Toa tools, and masks would be slightly exempt from the structurally sound clause, as it is presumed that LEGO would create new weapons, gearboxes, and headblocks in the event they released such a line.
And now a moment to acknowledge the MOCs and MOC makers that inspired this project.
Apologies in advance for any and all mispronunciations.
We have already mentioned Sokoda and their Astarr figure, which sparked the project. Next we have GiiKei and their Toa Mata Re-Invention collection, which gave direction on how to build the gearbox so it wouldn't explode when used. Then we have Wadapan and their Bionicle Toa Tahu Awakens set, with an impressive Tahu and an even more impressive mask build, as it is almost impossible to find system-based Bionicle MOCs that do so. While I did not end up using this approach, it is worthy to note. Our final major reference comes from Taohe Netrus, and their MOC called The Beginning of the New Chronicle, which directly inspired the masks for my G3 concept. The project, however, has gone missing on LEGO Ideas, but is fortunately still preserved on the Internet Archive.
It should also be noted that Tahu's Fire Sword and Kopaka's Ice Sword were directly based on Nux 400's project Bionicle Tahu 20th Anniversary Edition and GiiKei's Kopaka Re-Invention, respectively.
Now with all that out of the way, let's dive in with our first model, Gali Mata. The reason I started with her and not Tahu is because I wanted to demonstrate what advantages a system-based build could provide. To that end, I hope to design Gali with a feminine physique, instead of just recycling the torsos from the male Toa.
And just what did you have in mind?
I hypothesized I'd make the other Toa's shoulders 5 studs wide, so for Gali I'd make them 4, as well as giving her, well, you know.
An actual bust?
Yeah, sure, we'll just go with that.
Fun fact. It is theorized that the Technic socket on her chest indicates that she is female, since socket receptacles such as this are referred to as female in a direct comparison to biological—
Yes, fascinating stuff I'm sure, but we're not here to give a lecture on the birds and bees, okay?
Of course.
As for the limbs, they're almost identical to the other Toa. This was because I wanted a look more similar to the Toa Metru. It's also because the Technic socket connectors I was using for the shoulders and the hips to help with the color coordination really only led me to one way to design them.
Using locking hinges for the elbows is an interesting choice.
That allowed me to thread Technic axles through the arm to provide additional strength to the hand.
keen-eyed observers will note that Galli's mask is not entirely transparent dark blue like her original counterpart.
Well, I imagine it was originally done that way so the visor would still show her eyes.
Then why is the gold version of her mask a solid color?
So hey, her water hooks look pretty cool.
Does the gearbox still work when she is holding them?
It sure does, but I do need to talk more about that later.
Then let us proceed to Tahu, Lewa, and Kopaka.
The rest of the Toa Mata use a 5-wide frame, which honestly only looks okay as it's a bit chunky, but it still sports a functioning gearbox. Well, at least without the weapons. I haven't actually built them to test. That and those fin bevel gears should really be the thicker ones, but I figured since I can't use those for Gali, then I'll just keep it consistent for the rest.
How much trouble did the masks give you?
A lot. Some of them came out better than others, but I had to design multiple unique head blocks, so they are not actually interchangeable.
Moving on to Onua and Pohatu. They have the most distinct builds.
Onua wasn't so bad, but for Pohatu I had to perform a couple additional changes to make it work, and I'm not thrilled on how his mask came out, or Lewa's for that matter.
And with that, what is your verdict on the project?
Onua and Kopaka look really good. Gali and Tahu are fine, and Pohatu and Lewa are iffy. The gears not being double width bothers me, as well as the frailty of the masks, coupled with the fact that they are not even interchangeable. Add that to the fact I wasn't able to design different styled limbs because of those Technic socket connectors, and the whole thing is kinda meh.
The concept of the project was very limiting.
True, and for a more successful outcome I should have just stuck with Project Zalax. Even still, system-based ball and socket figures currently just don't work as well as Technic-based, particularly with the arms, as they become bulky and heavy very quickly, making weapons almost out of the question. Not even the superhero construction figures mess with them, save for Wolverine.
But that is not the end of the story.
No, because after all that, I wanted to try my hand at building the Mask of Light in this style. And naturally, with a Mask of Light comes the Toa of Light, Takanuva. Now this is where it's at. A modified torso with a chest plate, shoulder armor, some tweaked limbs, and a mask that I dare say looks really cool.
No brick-built weapon this time?
No. That's something I could change easily if it starts bothering me, but I like how the Staff of Loyalty looks.
But you still could not leave well enough alone.
Nope, because I wanted to make sure the pearl gold armor could also be made in metallic silver, and so Tahu Nuva was born. But then I wondered if I could design new armor for Gali, and of course I had to make Gali Nuva as well, but neither of them have brick-built weapons.
And yet, after all of that, you still made 2 more figures.
Since the initial inspiration came from the Toa Metru, all it took was a little adjustment to bring them to be. The lower legs are 1 stud longer, ratchet joint hips, reshaped torso, yada yada yada. It's Toa Vakama and Toa Nakama. Unfortunately, not all of the Toa Metru can be built like this, but I was too far gone to even try at this point. Also, their masks don't separate from the head block.
Not to mention you designed a mask completely out of transparent dark blue pieces.
Oh yeah, I did. And she was just thrown together recently, unlike the others.
Despite your lackluster approval, you just keep building them.
Honestly, I do like trying to translate them from Technic to system, even if they are a bit wonky. I have had the thought to try some villains next, like the Rakshi, Vaki, or Pyraka, but not now.
I guess all that is left now is to pitch the gallery and instructions.
Yeah, about that. I'm not going to be releasing the instructions for them, at least at this time.
Why is that?
Well, firstly, none of the instructions are actually finished, and with the great quantity of them with their minute differences, I can't just copy-paste. Plus, I seem to keep tweaking the designs, which doesn't bode well when you have to do 6 or more at a time.
The galleries will still be available, yes?
Of course, that you can find in the description. Also, there will be links to all the MOCs referenced, as well as some additional Toa and Matoran builds by Wadapan. There's also this really awesome Makuta by Nemesis Chungus I found in my searching.
Then I do believe we are done.
Finally.
Thanks for stopping by.
Have a good one.